Happy Tuesday, Locked On Women's Basketball fans. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every day. Guys, there's so much to talk about across the WNBA, and I have a very, very special guest to do that with. Locked On Women's Basketball starts right now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Every day, and we cover a lot of teams every day. This is the WNBA episode. I'm joined by Sara Gamelli. She is the WNBA and NBA staff writer for Ball is Life and manages Ball is Life bets. So if you need any advice with betting, go right to her. Sara, thank you so much for joining me.
What's up, girl? Thanks for having me.
What's up? No, thank you for coming on.
I appreciate it.
I know it's a busy week because you have to cover the W and the NBA. How do you balance both, honestly?
Listen, it's tough. I normally have like 10 screens kind of going at once, but shout out to WNBA League Pass for having the quad cam back. Love that. Just put it on my screen, and I've been a little bit more involved with the W just because of the stuff that's been going on right now. The NBA has a lot of breaks, so I've been kind of really focusing in on women's basketball right now. So,
and I love that you're doing that, and you focus on women's basketball. And I'm gonna plug the background behind you too. You also write a little bit for the Celtics, so this is a busy time.
I do want to say though, even though it's NBA, I love what the Celtics are doing. They are so like loyal to the Connecticut Sun. It's kind of like their sister team. And if you didn't know, they're playing over at the TD Garden, and they've been really marketing them and talking them up. And it's something that I haven't seen for a long time growing up in Connecticut. So just love to see that, so I might be able to do a little bit of like cross, like writing between like the Celtics and the Sun. So
I would love to see that. Do Sun teams ever pull up to Celtics games?
I mean, there's a lot of cross because the Mohegan Sun is more on the eastern side of Connecticut. So it's like maybe like an hour away from Boston, because it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, to be honest with you. So like the Liberty or with the Nets. So it's really great to see them like finally like recognizing like, yeah, they're 8-0, but they've been really good for a long time. So I just want to say like, shout out to them.
No, shout out to them. Shout out to the Sun as well. Shout out to the Connecticut girls. I feel like every guest I have on is from Connecticut, and we run deep.
Yeah.
We're raised with women's basketball too. Like, we're very lucky.
That's what we grew up with.
UConn. And also, I'm pretty sure former UConn hooper Ashley Battle works like front office for the Celtics as well. So
yeah, there's a lot of cross.
Oh, that is so cool. Yeah, shout out that too. Have you been seeing that too? Like, I know you tweeted across, NBA social platforms in general, they'll plug WNBA teams as well. Yep. Yes.
Yeah, and it's something you didn't really see. I'm showing my age a little bit, but I mean, I went to Sun games when Lindsay Whalen was there, and I had her jersey, and you just never saw that cross marketing ever. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it sucks that it's happening like right now, but I'm just happy that it's happening. And I think people could have done this a few years ago, but I'm just happy it's at the point where people are just starting to recognize it, which, is great. So
it is. And I want to know, this is something that ideally, I guess I would have asked at the end where we're heated up and we talked about a lot of things, but like, is this something that you see as sustainable? And I know all our Locked On listeners are just fans of the women's game in general. So for them, they're like, no brainer, this is sustainable. But in the greater conversation of things where we talk about NBA players showing up to WNBA games or whatever crossover there is beyond that, which is like every day it surprises me. Like the fact we saw Tyla at a Liberty game, I'm like, girl, you're here for this is a great game.
I mean, you just interviewed Sauce Gardner. That was amazing right? Was it Sauce?
It was Sauce. Okay, all right. All the listeners at home, guys, Sauce Gardner came to the Liberty game, and I go, Sauce, I work for the Next Hoops. Can I talk to you about women's basketball? He's like, please, the ladies deserve the respect. And then afterwards, I'm like, oh, I wonder if he saw it, whatever. So I go on his Instagram. He had posted like 4 or 5 stories just of no, not me, just of Ellie the elephant at the Liberty. And I'm
Ellie's unmatched.
Sauce saw, and then afterwards he gets home, he posts another story. He's like, I need to go to more Liberty games. Like,
See? It's contagious.
The power of showing up and just seeing, because I think that's like the greater conversation, right? Like,
Yep.
we know it's a great product, and now a lot of people are tapping in. So I guess that's what I want to ask. Like, do you think this is like a forever hook now, and like we're forever change the trajectory of the viewership?
I mean, 100%. And we've seen the league grow. People just think it just took off today. And you and I know we've been covering this sport for a while. The trajectory has been increasing. And, we've seen it over time. And sure, there's all the NIL deals and capitalizing off NCAA, a popularity and the media rights deal. But I think right now it's just a perfect storm. I think, it's the hardest league. There's only 144 roster spots. I mean, these athletes are incredible. They're the cream of the crop, and it's only going to get better talent-wise, with the more technology that they have in broadcasting. It's kind of like word of mouth. Like, people have to go to these games. I tell people, when you go to a New York Liberty game or Connecticut Sun or Atlanta Dream, like, it's contagious. There's just no other way to put it. The product is great. The atmosphere is great, but the gameplay is great. You're seeing just phenomenal athletes. Like, I've been, not to knock the NBA, but I've been to a lot of NBA games and I'm just like bored, It's like, there's so much going on in this game that's beyond the court, the stories, their life, on the court, off the court. I just think that it's just at the tip. It's just at the beginning. I don't ever see this ever a league that's ever gonna go down. I just think it will go up, and I'm glad to see people do, representing the sport hopefully in the right way and seeing where it's at right now. That makes sense.
We got to get into more of this, and also all the
deep.
amazing ways you tell the stories of the league. And we're going to do that after this break, guys. We're going to get into all the Stephen A comments, just so you know. So stay tuned, because we got to talk about it. We got to talk about Miss Monica Nutt. There's more coming up right after this. So, like I said, if you need betting advice, you go to Sara. And if you need to bet, you go to FanDuel. Man, I feel like with this WNBA season, there are so many different storylines to look out for. And anytime I'm watching a broadcast from home and I'm not actually at a game, I'm like, oh my God, this is over under. I love to tap into anything WNBA betting, but there's other sports going on too. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to spend on bet spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Visit FanDuel.com to look at odds to include in your bets. So check that out. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. All right, and we're back with someone who does a lot in sports betting. How's it been also with the conversation sports betting for you with the WNBA season this year?
I mean, it's been exciting. When we went to the NBA draft, it was kind of cool because Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner, kind of talked about it and keeping the integrity. I try to keep things kind of separate. For me, my passion is kind of like the journalistic side and really getting to know these athletes, on and off the court, like I said. But I do think as a whole, if it's done correctly, I think it can grow the sport as long as people are like actually knowing these players, instead of just saying, oh, they're going to get over 2.5 rebounds or 6.5 assists, So I do think in a sense, it's definitely going to help grow the way and pave the way. But it's a controversial subject, some people like it, some people don't. But another thing that I don't like is in some of the sports books, by the way, FanDuel is amazing. Shout out to them. They've included the WNBA. But there's a lot of sports books that are behind. There's a lot of apps that are behind. There's a lot of people that don't believe that there's a market in women's sports betting when there actually is. 3 of my best guy friends are always like really excited about it. And they're also into the sport. So that's what makes it, exciting. So.
Okay. I still agree with you. And I love that. She pressed that and she was like, we're looking for media rights deals, sponsorship deals, but also we're going to embrace betting because a lot of people want to do it. And it's just making people more passionate in general, right? Like you buy into fandoms and you buy into storylines, but it also helps to have a little money on the line.
It does. And my podcast friend, he lives in Canada. Like he started betting on the WNBA, Gigi, and he loves it. He's like, I watch it he's a hockey fan. He's like, I watch the games over NBA. So whatever gets people to buy in, I mean, whatever. I don't even think he bets that much anymore. He watches it like religiously, quad cam, everything. So when he heard about the Toronto team, he was like, I'm getting season tickets. And that made me so happy. I was like, oh my gosh.
I was just going to ask you about that. Of course, he's getting them. So maybe a lot of hockey fans coming over to the W as well. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Okay, so Sarah, you and I were both at the Liberty game last night. Liberty Fever. We're going to get into Caitlin Clark. We didn't see a great performance from her, right? Give me your thoughts on this, because I think a lot of people ask me, are you like worried about her? And to me, honestly, not to lead the horse, whatever, I'm not worried. I think it's an off night. It is what it is. I was expecting her to go off in a way where she would score a lot of threes just because of her matchup with Sabrina. But she was guarded well by Benijah. Like, that's a tough defensive or offensive assignment against a great defensive player. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Strictly about Caitlin Clark right now, and then we could touch on the rest of the Fever offense.
I mean, I'm not worried. I mean, I think with a lot going on, I mean, she said she stays off social media. I mean, they had 7 games in 12 days. I mean, their schedule has been grueling. And not only that, but Christy Sides has her playing like close to 40 minutes. So it's like you've played one of the top teams, the Liberty. I believe it was 3 times or 2 times, right? 3 times now.
Twice, I think.
Is it twice? Let me double check that.
Season 2. Yeah, you're right.
3 times. And it's like you're going up against the cream of the crop. Benijah Laney is the most underrated defender, in my opinion. I'll get into that in a second. But, in my opinion, in the WNBA, like, she's going to struggle. This league is meant you're going to struggle as a rookie. We've seen it besides Candace Parker. We've seen people struggle, and, the physicality is different, and these are veterans, and these are not people that are going to just let you pull up and shoot. And we've seen that even with Sab and some of the sharpshooters in the league. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you're playing in front of 17,000 fans, sellout, by the way. And honestly, I mean, I know she scored, I think, didn't she score like 22 points last game?
Oh, yeah. She had a Caitlin Clark game before.
Yeah, she had a Caitlin Clark, but it's not always going to happen. It's not always going to translate. And this is a young team. I mean, they need grace. They need time to get it together. And then you're going up against a Liberty team that was just in the finals. So when you have Kayla Thornton, when you have Benijah Laney, I mean, no, I didn't expect her to drop a 30 bomb, to be honest with you.
And so you're in the press conference, you're hearing Benijah speak after the game. What were your takeaways from her? Because she was an absolute dog. I'm like, you're doing it all, and we know you do it on defense. We know you have your moments on offense, but it seemed like she was touching the ball every possession. Yeah, I mean, she's such a dog, like, honestly, and she's so straight faced, like, but I don't know if she realizes this, but she really is the heart and soul of this team, on both ends of the court. And I love the fact that she's always taking like the toughest opponent on the other side and guarding them at the perimeter, the nail or whatnot. But, I really took away, I know somebody asked her about getting bored in that second quarter, which the Liberty have become a little complacent, but, she knows, she knows, she walks the walk, talks it, and she knows Caitlin Clark wasn't going to pull up on her. And I think I got that sense from KT and Kayla Thornton and even like Kennedy Burke at times. And, a lot of people really don't know who she is, but look at what she did in transition, like her and Sloot and her stealing. She was all over the court. I mean, I don't know if she's been working out 3 times a day, but she's always been tough like that. But it's nice to see her, she's been cut. I know Kayla's been cut. It's nice to see her just come back and just be that X factor that, whether it's attacking inside, getting the mid range. I even saw her shoot over Aaliyah Boston. Like, her confidence right now, I feel like, is at an all-time high. And she knows that. Do you think it is those off-season workouts, or how much do you think them being more of a team this year is improving all of their individual game?
I think it's more that, because think of it last year. like KT was out for a little bit. Jonquel was in a boot. Stewie was moving. Sabrina, was trying to get her footing. And I think Sandy Brondello was trying to bring all of them together. And, they had some tough times. They weren't really a championship contender until the second half of that season, really. I would say Jonquel really kind of got the motor running for them. So I feel like knowing their roles and having that chemistry on both ends of the court is opening things up. I think their spacing is excellent. I think the way that Jonquel is able to space the floor with Stewie, it really creates opportunities for Lainey to find that mismatch and attack where she knows that she's stronger. And we saw that last night, especially in the paint. But what I love about Benijah, it's not always like with Stewie, it's not always what she shows in the box score, right? Like sometimes she doesn't even have to touch the ball and she'll draw away a defender to open up that corner three. So it's like the little things that they do that she does that kind of maybe draws a double team or but yeah, no, she's a veteran leader on this team. And I could talk her all day, really. I really could.
Do you think it will be Liberty Aces again? Or do you think the Connecticut Sun are going to slide in there? Is it too early to say? You could say that honestly. I know you probably don't want to say it's too early to say, but I would accept that. I know it is.
Honestly, right now, it's going to sound crazy. I feel like it's kind of wide open this year. I feel like last year there was that narrative, which the players expressed, they did not like that super team narrative. It was like the Aces but the Sun have been there consistently every single year. I mean, a couple of years ago, they were in the finals and they're a great defensive team. So yeah, right now, like New York, Connecticut, Vegas, but look at the Lynx. I mean, they were ranked number 9th. I mean, the Storm can get it together. A lot of these teams, a lot of different free agencies, people moving here and there. And it's like, some of these teams have to develop chemistry and you never know what could happen post All-Star. A team could kind of come out of the woodwork, but yeah, it's going to be hard to beat Vegas. I don't know any other team that has a chemistry that they have, honestly. And they just signed Tiffany Hayes. They're only getting better. They're only getting better. So it's like,
there's so much to talk about this WNBA season. Guys, we're going to really, really get into a lot of the headlines that came out today. Monica McNutt calling Stephen A. out and a little bit more about, man, for the people who've been here, what's it like to get this influx of fans? We're going to get into that for our third and final segment right after this. Today's episode is also sponsored by BetterHelp. So there are a lot of things I think therapy helps, and I know a lot of people agree, and I'm so happy this is another narrative that's changing over and over. It's so nice to just get things off your chest and talk things through. We all carry different stressors, big and small. When we keep them bottled up, it can start to affect us negatively. Therapy is a safe space to get things off your chest and to figure out how to work through things, whatever is weighing you down. So I've benefited from therapy, and I would just recommend to everybody to try it out. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Get it off your chest with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, Sarah, I really honestly don't want to see you go, but we definitely need to talk about what happened on First Take. Today, we're recording this on Monday, so it happened this morning. So it was a 40-minute segment. I'll just give the people a little bit, and then we're gonna get into it. 40-minute segment. Monica McNutt joins Shannon Sharp, Stephen A, and Molly. Molly's hosting, and Molly did a great job.
She did.
And the summary of it all is Monica McNutt has a platform where she could speak about what a lot of WNBA fans are feeling right now, where it's like this Caitlin Clark foul happens and people are knocking down WNBA analyst doors to talk about this and talk about how serious it is. And it should be talked about, but what they wanted to talk about on First Take is there's a greater conversation here. And Monica, you should watch the segment, calls out Stephen A and is like, with your platform, you could have been doing this 3 years ago. Yes, you're covering it right now, but you could have done it 3 years ago. And I think that is the argument that we should focus on. Everybody would say that was a flagrant foul against Caitlin Clark. Right? I think you
Yeah.
would say that.
I mean, it was a flagrant, but also at the end of the day, it's like, it's basketball, it's physical. I grew up with 90s basketball. I mean, if you remember, there was the brawl with Candace Parker, her rookie, I think it was her rookie year. I'm like, it's sports. It's going to happen. I'm not saying it's right, but it's like, that's the league. It's going to be physical.
100%. And I mean, Carter just had like a great bucket right before that, you know? So she got it within a couple points. My argument is it might have been a heat of the moment. Like, I'm playing basketball and I'm trying to win this game. And that's where I give her the credit. And I think what Monica is expressing beyond even a racial argument, which is like a whole different thing besides a media coverage argument, it's something that needs to be talked about. She's saying, wait, like, it can't only just be when it's about Caitlin. Is that something that you feel, or do you feel like in general, Caitlin Clark's only adding, and this is like a rising tide raises all ships kind of situation?
I think my opinion is pretty much shifted into the fact that, listen, I respect Caitlin Clark. She, shout out to her for breaking that record and balling out, and Pete Maravich, that's a very hard record to break. I think people just do not understand. This is my opinion. I don't want to go on a tangent about this. First of all, Monica McNutt should not even have had to say, we have to talk to like police people like that. That really upset me, and that kind of made me upset hearing that. But the thing is I've been watching First Take for years, and they don't talk about the WNBA like that. That just and I'm not trying to diss them or anything, and they don't. And she made a really valid point, and it's like, it's just not about Caitlin Clark. She's a great player in this league, but there's a lot of other great players, and maybe she helped this league, get over the hump, but it's been here. The product has been here. The women have been here. The athletes have been here. And I think the newer people coming in to cover this sport, like, yeah, that's fine, but you need to, learn about the history and the people that paved the way for athletes of today, and like Caitlin Clark. So when Stephen A. went on that rant, I was just like, well, why don't you cover it? Like, you have this huge platform. And I think the issue here, Gigi, is that the bigger media platforms are so stuck on their bigger narratives. It's honestly just taking away from everything that's going on in the WNBA. And I thought she was right on the money. And I think they just want to feed off whatever they can feed off of to get popularity. And that's just my honest opinion. And then there's small outlets like us that are trying to cover this game with integrity in the right way. And shout out to Molly, because I was like difficult to deal with because that man's soul left his body. He looked like a ghost.
Gone.
But, there is some, I don't know how you feel about this, but, I just don't think it's about one athlete at all. There's so many, I'd love to talk with you about someday about all the storylines, the other rookies. It's not even just about the rookies, that's just my honest take about it. Maybe some people have another take about it. I think Caitlin Clark kind of got in the middle of it, and the girl probably just wants to hoop. I don't think she even like wants all this. I mean, her passion is basketball. We all just want to hoop, right?
She just wants to hoop. Like,
wants to hoop.
All these media obligations, it's great for us. It's so great that we get to hear her answer questions, and they pick her for pretty much every press conference. I think that's amazing. I do think that seeing people be so up in arms about a foul and then being so quick to be not only anti Kennedy Carter, but anti the entire Sky roster and anti the rest of the WNBA.
And it's not fair to them. It's not fair to Teaspoon, who's killing it, by the way, in Chicago.
Oh, Teaspoon. And
her.
Rewatching it, I really like what she did with the timeout right after that. She talked right to Carter. And it's like,
there.
I have no idea what she said, but I'm assuming by the way she said it and who she is, I think she's like, we're good. Like, that's fine, but we don't need to do all that kind of thing. Like,
right. And then you're done. And that's it really exploded. And Teaspoon, like she played physical, at her time in the WNBA. I mean, people are, I honestly, Gigi, I think it's like the new fans, the new media that are kind of like creating all this chaos and all the hate, when I don't see any players. I don't see anybody covering this game that's hating. I think it's the outside noise. Like, it's things like First Take and these kind of segments that are really just, it's damaging the sport. It's not great.
Mm-hmm.
And, listen, it is a flagrant whatever, but it's like, it's sports. And it's like, she's going to have to learn how to adjust to the physicality of the league. Just like everybody else has. I know Sabrina, she struggled. I mean, she's what, in her 4th year, 5th year? Now now the girl's learning how to attack inside, no look passes, you see the evolution. So, with Stephen A, he said a lot of things, I think recently that, I question, but my thing is, if you can't cover women's basketball, just don't talk about it like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you can't cover it and you don't really know the history, don't talk about it. Period.
Yeah, period. Let's talk real quick about MV period. MVP period. A'ja Wilson. Sara, I have to know, because honestly, this is me admitting my faults to all the Locked On listeners. Guys, I am so sorry to everybody, where last year I was like, oh, Breanna Stewart's clearly the MVP. And I stand by that. I stand by it. I've said it. And so I'm going to stand by it. That being said, maybe it's because I read her book. Maybe it's because I've watched all the miniseries they put out.
Book, by the way.
Maybe it's like I'm just purely obsessed with her and I actually really want her jersey and I want to like know more about her. Yep. A'ja Wilson, I will not let her go under the radar again this year. Do you think us in the media space, are we forgetting about A'ja Wilson and the Aces?
Honestly, yeah. I feel like, I mean, how many teams go back to back? How many? I mean, she's just doing things that no one else is doing. I mean, not only is she a double machine, but she's just a hooper. I mean, there's so many great things to say about A'ja. And by the way, I'm really glad she got her shoe deal. I know that was in the works for like a year, so it must have been really hard for her to like keep that under wraps.
She had so many people angry on her behalf.
You could kind of tell she was kind of like avoiding it, but finals MVP, 2-time champion, defensive player of the year, 2-time defensive player of the year. I mean, I look at Alyssa Thomas like this too. Like last year's MVP race was very, very close. And you know what? I will say, I don't know who in their right mind would ever vote for her for 4th. But she clearly was bothered by that. We saw it in the finals. I think she still is very bothered by that because she's one of the best to ever play the game. She's a leader on the court, leader off the court. She just does everything right. And even, we saw that when Candace Parker wasn't able to suit up and they had to make some adjustments in their lineup. But yeah, she's just a star. And I even myself, I'm trying to get more coverage out there because I feel like people are just not talking about them, but it's like, it's the Aces, they're, to me, they've been the cream of the crop. Not saying the Liberty aren't great or the Connecticut Sun aren't great, but like, man, you just won back-to-back titles. You know how hard that is? Like, it's crazy.
They dominated. I'm right there with you. She deserves all the respect in the world, as do you. Sara, thank you so much for coming on. This is always,
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Talk. We probably could talk for hours, honestly.
Probably.
People know where they could find your work, personal, business, everything. And everybody make sure you check out Sara. She's amazing and she's so consistent and always so in depth with everything that she puts out.
Appreciate you having me.
So happy to have you. Yeah, you can find her on Instagram, Sara Jane Gamelli. Are you more of an Twitter girl, I feel like?
I'm trying to move towards like the TikTok and the Instagram, put out wholesome content, like the entire, but yeah, I mean, I get stuck in the X world, but it's pretty toxic right now. So
have to take a step away. And guys, if you want other takes and you want a whole new sports news thing to check out, make sure you check out the Locked On streaming channel on YouTube. It's the first ever 24/7 sports streaming channel. So make sure you check that out. It's so fun to watch. And it's not really people just screaming and having hot takes. It's nice, consistent coverage. So this is the episode of Locked On Women's Basketball, guys. It's ending here. We're so happy to have you. And there's so much more coming up later in this week, including a possible New York Liberty coach on as a guest. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And Sara, thank you so much again for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Appreciate you. See you soon.
Definitely.